Hello everyone, today's poem is 滁州西涧 by Wei Yingwu. Wei Yingwu was born in the number one prestigious family around the capital city, Chang'an city. So we had introduced Dufu was from another prestigious family. So the two family, Wei family and Du family, was so-called 惟度离天三尺. So that's the two most prestigious family in the capital, and they are just 3.3 feet below the sky. The sky actually refers to the emperor, so they are quite close, the most close, and just a very little bit under the emperor. So the most prestigious family. And not like Dufu. Dufu is from a sub-branch of the main family branch. So he doesn't grown up in the Chang'an city, and his family was just so family, middle-ranking official family. But Wei Yingwu was born in the Chang'an city, and he was in the main branch of the Wei family, and he was born has a silver spoon in his mouth. So we can see how he's like in his youth time from one poem of his. Okay, this is a poem, so I won't translate the whole poem, just like see some of the key points here. 少室武皇帝. So when he was very young, he served the emperor directly. So he was 无赖是恩师. So he just like a bad guy. So normally we call it 流氓, because he relies on the power of the emperor. And 身作李中横, Li is the block, so the Chang'an city was divided into roughly 50-60 blocks. So one block is just a sub-district of the capital city, and they have the walls and a lot of the people living inside that wall. So you just treat it as a district. And 身作李中横, so he was make his way in this district. No, he obeys nobody, and he is just like the bad guy, bully anybody he encountered. So that's it. 家藏亡命儿. So in his house, 亡命儿means he killed somebody, or he committed some of the crime that be punished to the death penalty. 亡命is run away. That is an alternative name for he committed the death penalties. So normally that means he killed somebody in his youth time. But it's okay because he relies on the power of the emperor. He was a very close servant to the emperor. And 私力不敢普, so the court dared not to capture him. And 立在白玉玺, so he was standing on the court of the emperor. He's standing with the emperors. Nobody can dare to catch him. And so there are also some of the descriptions. 骊山风雪夜, 长阳羽猎时. That's all the events of the emperors. So he was always with the emperor in the most important events. 一字都不失, 饮酒4碗吃. So at that time, he doesn't read. So he was born in the most prestigious family, but he doesn't read. And he so that shows his interest and what he does. 饮酒思顽痴, so he always drinking. So that's the things a foolish or a bully guy used to do. From the poem, we know he was born in the most prestigious family in the capital city, around the area of capital city. And we can see he was born in the most prestigious family across the country. We can see that. And he doesn't read. He served the emperor very closely, and he was a lot of times he was sort of the playmate with the emperor, and he know all the things emperor does, entertainment, anything, but the political things. But this also reflects the emperor at the time. He doesn't care too much of the country, doesn't care too much of the political things. All the things is entertainment, music, hunting, drinking, dancing, whatever. So he joined the close servant of the emperor at the age of 15 per the history book. And just several years later, the civil war broke. And so that's all the thing related. The emperor doesn't care about the country, and the country broke. And with such change, Wei Yingwu, the poet, now we call him a poet, but at that time he was a bully guy, he was a bad guy, and he lost his job. The emperor fled to Sichuan province from the capital city, and so nobody is in a good condition. Everybody has a big change from that time, from the civil war. And due to the big changes, he changed his mind and started to read. And then he gets some of the positions in the government, because he got his families, he married, and also he had to feed his family and himself. So the Wei Yingwu, the poet, today, he was starting with the most glorious, the richest families, and he experienced the most glorious of the time of the Tang dynasty, the most prosperous time of the Tang time. And in his very youth time, before 20, the civil war broke, and it's just like U-turn. Everything changed dramatically, totally, and include the poet Wei Yingwu himself. He was famous for the 山水田园诗, mountains, rivers, and farming fields poems, and he was among one of the four most famous 山水田园诗人, the mountains, rivers, and farming fields poets. 王孟韦柳, 王维, 孟浩然, 韦应物, 柳宗元. So all the four actually crossed the whole Tang dynasty. Wang Wei and Meng Haoran belongs to the most prosperous Tang time, Sheng Tang, and Wei Yingwu belongs to the mid Tang time, Zhong Tang, and Liu Zongyuan belongs to the Wan Tang, late Tang time. So through even they all describing the mountains, rivers, farming fields, but through the thing is all the same, but it reflects the situation, the feelings, the sensations totally differently. So that's the 寓情于景. So when you want to express your feelings, you express your feelings through depicting the scenaric views. So that's a very typical writing technique in the classic poems, 寓情于景. Wei Yingwu was very famous for the characteristic of 恬淡冲和. So it's hard to translate in English the characteristic of his poems, 恬淡冲和. Basically, it means it's very peaceful and it tasteless, looks like tasteless, and looks very, very peace. 冲和is also means peace, the breath in a peace. That's sort of the Taoism's philosophies. Su Shi, the most famous poet in the Song dynasty, has praised or concluded the characteristics of the poems by Wei Yingwu and Liu Zongyuan. So it's comments to both poets. 发鲜浓于简古，寄至味于淡泊. So basically it's saying the same thing with two sentences. It means describe the most abundant and sophisticated things with the very simple and classic wordings, or to describe the richness flavor with the very simple or tasteless wordings. It looks to contrast the tensions between the surface of the wordings and the real feeling and the sensation contained in the poems. But that's the most advanced techniques or the capabilities by Wei Yingwu. He can use the most simple, tasteless wordings to reflect something really abundant and deep feelings. Okay, let's look at this simple and picturesque poems and try to feel the very deep, profound feelings beneath the simple words. 滁州西涧，韦应物。独恋幽草涧边生，上有黄鹂深树鸣。春潮带雨晚来急，野渡无人舟自横。滁州西涧 the place name. Chuzhou is a small town or small county, 1 hour's drive from Nanjing city to the west. Anyhow, it's not a very popular place because it's surrounded by mountains. So normally people won't go there if he doesn't have a solid reason. So it's a sort of the very even it's very close to Nanjing, it's sort of the remote place that people usually don't go there. And thus the poet Wei Yingwu himself, he was assigned a position there and as the governor of the Chuzhou, and he was in such a leisure. Even he takes a great care for the his duties for the people in the Chuzhou, but it's still a very quiet place, so he has a lot of the leisure time, and he has doing a lot of track dining parties. And Xijian is a small creek in the outside of this town in the west, and that's the West Creek. So this poem was written when Wei Yingwu work here as the governor of Chuzhou, and most probably when he write this poem, he has quit this position, and he stayed in the area of Xijian, outside of the town, for a couple of months, and he write this poem. Actually, he has no job; he's jobless, and he quit the job by himself. 独恋幽草涧边生. So 恋 is a little different from modern Mandarins. 恋 is sympathy in modern Mandarin, but in the Tang dynasty it means love or adore. So he only adore the grass alongside the small creek. And one word, yu, has double meanings. It means the very dark, or means it's silent. So here has the both of the meanings, but it's dark over there, and it's quite silent over there, and there's some of grass alongside the creek. And here it just put you on the very side of Xijian and let you focus on those grass. That's the only thing the poet loves, no matter how the creek is, how the surrounding mountain is, or maybe other things is. 上有黄鹂深树鸣. So this second sentence has two effects. One thing is the grass is covered or shadowed by the 深树, the very thick woods. So that's why I'll explain the grass is sort of the 幽草, the grass in the dark and silent place. And also the 黄鹂is very popular birds, oriole birds, very popular oriole birds. Also it's a sort of the symbolic birds in the springtime. And the birds singing in the thick woods. And this is also another technique to use the sound to contrast the silence. And if it's totally silent somewhere, maybe you don't realize the silence. So one sound or two sound will make the person to realize it's such a quiet place, such a silence. So the second sentence has two effects. It further depicts the surroundings and explains how the dark, silent grass it is, and also use the bird's sound to make the environment much silent. 春潮带雨晚来急. So it's such a dark, silent place. The time, it feels the time is still. Nothing changes. Anyhow, the Tang comings. So when you read the Tang poems, try to read two things, the space and time. So here it's put you in a very small, tiny spot of space and focuses on the grass. And then the time comes from the third sentence. 春潮带雨晚来急. 春潮, the tide of spring, so it's spring times. And also this also corresponds to the birds, oriole birds, which is the spring bird. 带雨晚来急, so also has a speed or hurry. So it's not only about the time or a point of time, it's a time changing. It's very in a very hurry. I feel the hurriness. 春潮带雨晚来急. So he compared the tide of the spring as a person the tide brings the rain as well in the very late time of the day, 晚来集, and it's in such a hurry to bring the rain in the late time. So you can feel the something from the poem or so far from the 3 sentences. Everything is quiet. Maybe the poet stayed there for the whole day, and until very late time, it rains very heavily and in a hurry, and thus it makes the time changing shows in these poems. Let the poem or let the readers feel the time changing, or it's the dynamic of these poems. And Chunchao, the tide of spring, refers to the rush water of the creek, because in the winter, winter season, the water is not much and the water is quite shallow and still. And when the spring comes, it's a lot of the rains and brings more water, so make the creek the water rush very quickly. So that's the tide of spring. 春潮 refers to the water in the creek. So the water in the creek and the rain, they are walking toward each other. So, and also they are closely related. And here, basically, in the real sense, the rain makes the creek rush, and the rain makes the creek there. But the poet put the other way. The creek brings the rains to come, and thus the both power, the both creek and rains makes the water to rush more quickly. So that's you feel the tension with thought of the technique and the descriptions. And the last sentence, the most famous sentence, 野渡无人舟自横. So 野渡, the 野 is wild, the countryside. 渡 is the port or the fort. So there's nobody around the place. So that also pinpoint the place where the poet stayed. He stayed somewhere near the port in the countryside along the creek. There's nobody but poet himself. 舟自横, because it's a port or fort, normally in 99% in the Chinese countryland, there would be a shuttle boat. And because of the rush water, the shuttle boat crossed. So the heng here actually it means normally the shuttle boat with the passengers, with the drivers, he will go from this end to the other end of the river, the other side of the river. So that's a vertical. The line, the boat looks like vertical, and because there's nobody there, no boatman and no passengers, the boat was tied to the one side of the river, and with the rushing river rushed the boat. The boat actually is along the stream, along the direction of the streams, and looks like the cross. That means so that means 野渡无人舟自横. If you are fond of the Chinese paintings, no matter it's classic paintings, Chinese paintings or the modern Chinese paintings, definitely you will see a lot of the pictures depicting a river in the countryside, a small river in the countryside, and there's a shuttle boat on the side of the river, and there's nobody there, and the boat is crossed. Or along the stream or direction of this stream. So that's all from this poem, and this is a very typical image when Chinese, they are near to some of the fort in a countryside. They always think of this picturesque poem. So from the surface, it's purely a scenario depicting poems, depicting about the river, the creek. So it belongs to the mountain, river, and farming fields type of poems. But keep in mind, it's roughly 20 years more after the Civil War. The Civil War takes 10 years, and it happens at the very youth time of the poet. At that time, he totally changed. Why he changed? He wanted to do something good for the country, something good to the people, and the first thing first, to defeat the rebellion troops, and second, to recover the glories of the country, and restore the life for the people. But anyhow, through roughly 30 years of struggle, you should know the country is declining after the civil wars. So no matter what he does, the turnout normally won't be a good turnout, and very likely to be a negative turnout, even he has a very, very good wish. And also he had seen so many similar situations among his friends, or surround him, the people, the things surround him. So this finally make his lifestyle is like you either to be a hermit, you away from the government, and you stay at some of the countryside, or you still keep your position, and but you won't try so hard to do something because the turnout is not good. So the only thing you have to do is to keep your heart as peaceful as you can. So when we had this background in mind, and let's look at back of this poem again. So the poet is so peaceful. Though with the first two sentences, he was in such a peace, and he has just quitted his job, and he's a hermit now. So it's such a peace. But anyhow, it's hard to be to stay in a peaceful land, because the time changes, and the time sometimes is an alternative name to the situations. The situations doesn't let him to keeping the pace, because the spring tide and also the rains, and everything seems in a hurry. So that's the real situation surrounded him. And finally, he tried to make his decisions, or he tried to make his ways in the last sentence. 野渡无人舟自横. Though he was the boat, and he was in the wild already. He was in the countryside because he wanted to be a hermit. But the situation doesn't let him to be a hermit. So let it be. 野渡无人舟自横. He was the boat, the shadow boat in the river, and he just adapt to the situation, to the rush stream of the creek. So the poet compared him as the boat that tied up there and rushed by the rushing stream. And if we look at one of the very famous sentences from Zhuangzi, you will have another thinking about the poem, and you will feel the very profound feelings of the poet. The sentence from Zhuangzi is 巧者劳而智者忧，无能者无所求，饱食而傲游。若泛若不系之舟，虚而傲游者也。不系之舟 the boat with not a rope tied up, and that's the place of the real freedom. So here you can see the poet actually, he want to be get somewhere that with freedom, but he's still tied up like the boat there. What does him tied up? Because from his life stories and his experience, he worried about the country. He worried about the people. So that's the typical pursuit for an educated person in the Tang dynasty. So there is a philosophy from the Zhuangzi, who is the sort of the ancestor of the Taoism, one of the ancestor of the Taoism. But he know that, but he want to pursue that Taoism, but he cannot do that because the education of the Tang dynasty made him to worry about the country, to worry about the people. And also cross a river from this place to another place is always used to describe the struggling journey of the life. So there's also some of the metaphor here. He was at this side, the poet, he was tied up at this side, and he didn't do anything to cross the river, so which we have explained. He tried something in his youth time and middle age, but finally he gave up everything because all the endeavors, the result turned out to be nothing or even negative results. So he doesn't do nothing, and he just follow the streams or let the stream rush on him. He didn't do nothing. He didn't do anything, try anything anymore. But his heart was still deeply involved with the country, with the people. So such a huge conflict in his behavior and what he thought. So that's the poet in his late time. So with such a peaceful scenario, the descriptions of the scenarios, finally you will find out such a huge conflict and such a big sorrow, sadness deep in the mind, deep in the heart of Wei Yingwu. So that's Wei Yingwu, the very simple and tasteless wordings, and he expressed the most profound feelings and sensations. Okay, that's for today. Wei Yingwu. Okay, normally the character Wei is reading as Wei, the third tone. And when you're reading his name, it should be the second tone, Wei Yingwu. And if you went to Xi'an and go take the subway, I think it's line 2 to the last stop to the south, there is a stop so-called Weiqu, and that's the residence place of his prestigious big family, several hundreds of years in that place. You may take a look if you have the chance to visit Xi'an. Okay, that's for today. Bye-bye.